Welcome, everyone, to Weekend Wisdom by Creating a Family. I'm Dawn Davenport, and I am going to be the host and answering your question today on this week's Weekend Wisdom. Before I do that, let me remind you that we are now on YouTube. YouTube is the fastest growing way that people access podcasts, so check us out on YouTube. We would appreciate that. Also, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, Weekend Wisdoms are where we answer your questions. So today was a question about Black parents adopting a white child. This was a question we received from a survey we sent out to issues that our audience wished that we would address. So let's talk about that. Honestly, we do not talk as much about we talk about transracial adoption a lot and all the time. But the assumption is usually that it is a white family, a white parents adopting a child of color. And in fact, that is by far the more common. But we do need to talk about, because there are definitely Black families adopting white kids as well as families adopting Asian kids and Hispanic kids. It happens more often than people know. Anecdotally, I think it happens perhaps more often when adopting from foster care. Statistics on this are really hard to come by. So honestly, I don't know how good these stats are, but you know me, I'm going to try to find stats or research on something if I can. So about 8% of the white kids in foster care are adopted by Black or interracial families. And 2% of adoptions in general were Black parents adopting white kids. That's the best I could find. And as I said, Caucasian families, white families adopting Black or brown kids is far more common. And now about 40%, and actually I think it might be higher, but 40% of all adoptions in the U.S. are now transracial. But specifically as to the issues that a Black family would face when adopting a white child or a child of a non-Black race, it's going to be similar to other issues that all adoptive families would face, but specifically all transracial adoptive families, and race being the biggest issue. As I like this quote from an interview with a Black dad, and he said, with a white daughter, and he said, "I've never felt more self-consciously Black than while holding our little girl's hand in public." And I think that brings to the fore one of the issues is that, as with all transracial families, you become a conspicuous family. You stand out. You are not the norm. And that's particularly the case if both parents are Black and they are out together and they are with a white child. So I think becoming conspicuous is something that Black families, or as well as any transracial family, needs to think about before they adopt a white child. Another thing that perhaps is more unique to Black families is being mistaken for being the child's nanny, particularly if moms are out with a child. So something to think about beforehand. Another thing to think about is your own racial prejudices and assumptions. Again, in an interview I did once with a Black dad, he said, I never realized how much our family talked about white people and talked about race until we now had this white little girl. And we had to be aware of the fact that we were talking negatively and we all had our own prejudices that we really had not identified. So that's something to become aware of. So what can you do about it? Some of the same things we recommend for white families: create diversity in the child's life. In this case, if the child is white, you need to find white role models for the child. Fortunately, in some ways that is easier because the assumption is white superiority. And so it's easier, and schools tend to focus on the good things that whites historically have done. So in some ways it's easier, but you also have to be cognizant of it and make certain that you are doing that. You also need to be able to provide a strong white role models for this child that you are adopting, helping this child identify as a white person in the U.S. You need to consciously be thinking of that. There are not a lot of resources available for Black families adopting white kids. To my knowledge, Creating a Family has the most. I'll recommend two that we have. One is an article titled "Transracial Adoption Twist: Black Parents Adopting White Kids." And another article we did is "Black Families Adopting White Children." You can Google both of those or search on our site, creatingafamily.org. I hope this helps. I hope that this number one, makes you feel less alone, but also I hope it gives you some ideas of things to think about. So thanks for listening. And before everyone leaves, let me ask a favor. We very much need your reviews, but also your star ratings. It is super quick. It is easy to give us a review or to give a star rating. If you are listening on Apple, to either give a star rating or a review, you have to go to the Creating a Family podcast page. So just that's our general page. It's not the page specific for this episode. On the general podcast page, if you scroll to the bottom, you will see the stars. Just click on the star rating you want to give. Hopefully it's a 5. And then if you go right below that, you can click on the write a review if you are feeling generous and want to write a review. For Spotify, to leave a rating, you go to our podcast page and there will be a star rating there for the whole podcast. But if you want to do anything specific to this episode, on the show notes, you can leave a comment or write a review. And on YouTube, please, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you will subscribe to our channel, that would be helpful, and give us a thumbs up if this episode was something that was helpful for you. And you can also, of course, leave a comment there as well. So thanks for listening today, and I will see you next week.